The door of the black convertible slams, her skin glistening from the rain. The woman's dress becomes soaked from the falling droplets. The woman sprints toward a building at the end of an extended path. She reaches the stairs with great haste. The woman, becoming drenched, hops on the stone stairway, skipping every other step. Landing at the top, she hits the door. Panic building up in her chest, the saturated woman bangs on the door rapidly. Her heart rate starting to synchronize with every beat. She can feel a presence rushing toward her. The force unseen feeling closer, the woman grips her fist for one more powerful knock. The presence approaching closer, her hand starts to slam on the door for one last powerful knock. The door swinging open before the young woman's hand could finish the pound. The woman falls forward, her face barely missing the floor. Standing over her are two men, one tall and husky but athletic, the other a smaller gentleman with a slim build. The two looking over the woman with a confused gaze. "How do we go about cleaning this up?" the smaller man comments. The two looking at each other with wide eyes. The larger one meeting the other with a shrug. As the two begin to help the young woman up, they are startled by a sudden shout. "Kyle, Jerome, what are you two doing?" The two jump in shock. "You two need to get to the dining area, and the pulpit still hasn't been done." The two staring at the woman and then down at the fallen person on the floor, looking up at the sight before her. Kyle and Jerome still frozen as the woman looks down at the young woman on the floor. "What are you two doing standing there? Help the lady up." The woman snapping at the maintenance men, their eyes wide like two deer in headlights. Rushing to pick the young woman up, the woman brushes off the dust from her clothing. "What's your name?" the woman says sternly as the young woman looks on calmly. "Paula," she says quickly. "Hello Paula, I'm Stella." The woman's demeanor lightening up. "I am the secretary of this church, and these lumps are Kyle and Jerome." Stella holding her hand in the direction of the working men. "Now that our greetings are out of the way, our two maintenance men can get back to work." Stella shooting a sharp glare back at the confused-looking men. The two snapping back in line, they rush off to their next task. Stella gesturing to Paula to come with her. "So what brings you?" "I was recommended by my grandmother. I have been having issues with my husband and I don't know what to do. My grandmother brought up this church, so to make her happy I gave it a try. You know the old heads," Paula making a statement. "Yes, they can provide some wisdom now and then," Stella retorting. Walking down a hall at the back of the church, the women pass by a series of rooms. Proceeding down the hall, the sound of a guitar echoing through the hallway. The light hitting the faces of the duo until they hit a room at the end of the hall. The sound of the instrument vibrating through the door. A wooden door with a tag on it reading Reverend Johnson. "Here we are," Stella knocking on the door with a careful ease. The guitar still playing. Stella giving another knock with a little more force. The guitar hitting a strong note. Stella gives Paula a stressed smile. After the glare, Stella pounds the door with a powerful bang. The next guitar note hits a hard stop. Footsteps begin to walk towards the door. The wooden door opens up with haste. As the door opens, a conservatively dressed man opens the door. On his head a stylish hat giving him a dapper aesthetic. "Yes, how can I help you, Stella?" the Reverend answering to the aggressive knock. "Good day, Reverend, we have a Paula here. She was hoping to get some counseling," Stella explains. Paula looking on at the comedic sight. "I didn't see anything in the appointment book," the Reverend replies. It seems her grandmother requested her for a special type of counseling as Stella gestures her head in Paula's direction. The Reverend looking at Paula's disheveled appearance. The Reverend opens the door wider to let Paula in. "Of course, thank you, Stella," while Paula proceeds inside of the Reverend's office. The Reverend grabbing his guitar while Paula takes a look at his hand, seeing 5 rings on his fingers. Immediately thinking gaudy to herself. Now her mind thinking numerous thoughts of the average con artist church. The Reverend placing his guitar on the stand, he begins to pull a chair out for the woman seeking guidance. The Reverend begins to ask questions. "Hello, I am Reverend Brandon Johnson. What can I do for you today?" the Reverend asks. Paula, "It's not necessarily me. It's my husband. He has been acting strange lately," Paula explains. The Reverend looks on, trying to take in as much information as possible. "He has been distant, And any time I try to get him to talk to me, he becomes short. When I try to give him distance, he becomes possessive. The Reverend looking, nodding, seeming to get a picture of the situation. Does he have a history of this type of behavior? Reverend Johnson asks. No, at least not like this, Paula explains. When work gets stressful, he goes in his head, but lately he spirals into these mood swings. I have just been feeling drained, like any time he picks these fights my energy goes to zero. I don't know what to do, Paula says, beginning to tear up. The Reverend nodding his head, beginning, he has been distant. And any time I try to get him to talk to me, he becomes short. When I try to give him distance, he becomes possessive. The Reverend looking, nodding, seeming to get a picture of the situation. Does he have a history of this type of behavior? Reverend Johnson asks. No, at least not like this, Paula explains. When work gets stressful, he goes in his head, but lately he spirals into these mood swings. I have just been feeling drained, like any time he picks these fights my energy goes to zero. I don't know what to do, Paula says, beginning to tear up. The Reverend nodding his head, beginning to prep his thoughts to himself. Maybe you can come back and next time bring your friend. Maybe with you both here we can better get an idea of what is happening, the Reverend suggests. Paula standing suddenly, she begins to again reveal her ruffled look. No, he would never agree to that. Paula edging toward the door, preparing to make an exit. The Reverend holds his hand up to stop her for a moment. Let me give you my card just in case he changes his mind. The Reverend hands Paula the card. He touches her shoulder slightly. Paula flinching with slight discomfort. The Reverend looking worried and Paula trying to hide the pain. Paula immediately grabs the door to take her leave. His thoughts to himself. Maybe you can come back and next time bring your friend. Maybe with you both here we can better get an idea of what is happening, the Reverend suggests. Paula standing suddenly, she begins to again reveal her ruffled look. No, he would never agree to that. Paula edging toward the door, preparing to make an exit. The Reverend holds his hand up to stop her for a moment. Let me give you my card just in case he changes his mind. The Reverend hands Paula the card. He touches her shoulder slightly. Paula flinching with slight discomfort. The Reverend looking worried and Paula trying to hide the pain. Paula immediately grabs the door to take her leave. Paula opens the door, a pair of heels clacking down the hall. Paula hastily makes her way down the hall. She bumps into a tall, slender woman. Her posture straight, her demeanor welcoming but stern. Paula looks to the woman. I am so sorry, excuse me. Paula looking to the modestly dressed, but shapely woman. The Reverend grabbing the woman's hand, as the woman and Paula share a glance. Must be his wife, Paula turning away saddened by the sight she sees. The First Lady, I think they call them. After his encounter with the First Lady, the Reverend proceeds to follow after Paula with wife in tow. The First Lady still looking at the rushing Paula. What did you feel? The Reverend asks. The First Lady looking on, focused as Paula begins to veer out of sight. Paula leaving the back of the church, making a dramatic exit, with the couple following in a gentle pursuit. Paula reaches the front of the church. She comes to an immediate stop, as she didn't expect to see who was right in front of her. Paula, you didn't strike me as a churchgoer, the man says in an accusatory manner. I promise Grandma you know how she is, Paula replies. Cutting to a man clad in a suit. Stella walking in the room, she also looks on. Sensing the tense environment, her eyes dart in an awkward, nosy way. The man taking a step forward, he holds his hand out signaling for her to come with him. In the background, the Reverend looks over to the woman next to him for affirmation on what they might already know. The Reverend giving a nod to the woman as she begins to take a step forward. Paula, let's go, the man says with a more aggressive tone. Paula hesitantly grabbing the stern-looking man's extended hand. A sudden smack meets the two near-adjoined hands before they could touch. The man looking in the direction of the woman and Paula, shocked at the sudden move. The First Lady stares back at the man with a look of absolution. Sorry, mister. The woman asks, unfamiliar with his name. Dave, the man responds back. I'm sorry, Mr. Dave, but your energy is just off. I am sorry that my energy is a little off, but if I can take my wife with me, my energy won't clutter your church any longer. Paula, come with me now. Dave's voice becoming irritated with the situation. You know, Mr. Dave, you give off a rather small presence. Kyle and Jerome walk into the church now looking to see the scene. If you weren't going to say it, I was Stella reaffirming the First Lady's statement. This is ridiculous, Paula. Dave's voice echoing through the church. The First Lady readying herself by putting herself in between Paula and the now irate Dave. Paula. Dave's voice distorting, traveling through the air, causing ripples in the atmosphere. The uneasy feeling to those in the room rushing through their body. The woman pulling a small bag filled with herbs. Laying her hand on the herbal wrap. The wrap lights ablaze as she lifts her hand off of it. A single spark of ember falling from the herb mix lands onto the floor, and the smoke begins to flow from the burning item. The woman waves the tool to blow some of the smoke in the direction of the rage-filled Dave. Dave breathing in the smoke, he begins to lash in discomfort. Dave, Paula reaches out to her suffering husband. The Reverend reaches out to stopping Paula. Don't worry, Dave will be all right. Dave looking up, his eyes black, unveiling something dark. An aggressive stance is taken. Dave, taking an aggressive stance, begins to lunge forward. Hey, numbhead, Stella yelling at Kyle and Jerome, take action. The two men slow on the uptake but quick to action, grab the seemingly possessed husband. The woman walks up to the now restrained man. Jerome and Kyle, seeming stronger than they look, keep the now haunted Dave locked down. The woman walking closer to Dave with her smoking herbs, sending the scents into his body. Dave, possessed, begins to choke up a black substance. Dave lashing around wildly, the black substance beginning to ooze out of more of Dave's orifices. Dave giving a few more convulsive jumps, he slumps forward in Kyle and Jerome's hands. Paula running over to Dave, the worry on her face intensifying. Dave, can you hear me? Paula shaking Dave's barely conscious body. The crowd only notified by his life by the few grunts and groans. What is going on over there? Stella highlighting the black puddle on the floor. The ooze bubbling, a mass begins to form from the puddle. The mass beginning to take the shape of a formless human. Kyle looking shocked as well, Jerome confused looking over to Kyle. The woman stepping back looking to the Reverend. The Reverend looking around like Jerome but aware of the situation. The shadow standing ominously looking on to Dave laying motionless. The shadow figure floats toward Dave's body to reclaim his frame. The Reverend waves his hand, the hand shining with the 5 rings. The shadow figure looks as the faint sound of dogs begin to bark in the wind. The shadow figure looks on with a stance, letting off a blood-curdling scream. The shriek being met with a snarl, met with a tackle, its shoulder flying back. The shadow fighting back only to be met with the other shoulder flying back. The shadow fighting desperately, trying to get out of the barrage. As the last struggling screams of the shadowy demon takes at last, the barks and growls begin to calm themselves. Pamela looking at the sight she just witnessed grabs onto her significant other with a tight grip. The spectacle dying down, Stella pulling Kyle and Jerome, the two triumphant groundskeepers, away. You know you have to get this up by the next service, right? The two standing tall, slumping their shoulders. Later in the day, Dave waking up from his slumber, the Reverend and the woman that fought by his side stood next to one another as Pamela held Dave's hand. Dave looking to Paula, confused as to what was happening. What's going on, Pamela? Where are we? Still at the church. The Reverend and his wife wanted to make sure every bit of whatever that was in you was gone. Pamela explained. What exactly was inside me? Dave asks. The woman steps forward. A monster, specifically a shadow creature that manifests through negative feelings and feeds off the energy those feelings produce. Even though that monster came out of you, it came from you, Dave. The Reverend adding his piece. Yes, Dave, you have been very unfair these past months. What have you been feeling to produce that thing? Pamela asking with concern. I don't know, Dave looking away. The Reverend interjecting, Dave, you are in a place of no judgment, say what you must. Dave looking up at Pamela with sorrow in his eyes. Those years out of work for me were the worst days of my life. The way people talked about me. How your family spoke. I just knew when I got a new job I was going to work myself to the bone not to lose you. Dave beginning to fade off with his answer. You almost did with your behavior more than anything. Dave looking over in shame. All those tiresome nights, plus how I thought people saw me, resentment was building. I just knew I had to keep you close. Dave letting more out as the answers were surfacing. Just talk to me, I stood by you those years, And my grandmother brought me here, Pamela explains. My grandmother suggested this place. A lot of people want you to succeed, Pamela continues. I'm sorry, can you give me another chance, Dave begs. I can, but we have to make sure whatever that was that manifested from you never comes back. The woman steps forward. That's something we can help you with. I suggest some meetings where we balance your energy. I will make sure that rage and insecurity can be focused elsewhere. Also, some luck and financial charms would ease those tough work days. The woman giving her list of suggestions. You too could use some counseling as well. We can start on your communication. It is the key to any marriage, the Reverend explains. What do you guys think? Do you want to make our church your new home for a while? Pamela looks at Dave and Dave looks back. What do you think? Do you want to make a new start? Paula says with a smile. Dave looks at Pamela and smiles back. I most definitely do. The two exchange an embrace and look at the duo. Dave asking, so what do we call this new home? The Reverend looking at the First Lady and the woman smiling, knowing what is next. I am Reverend Brandon Johnson, and I am First Lady Kendall Johnson, and welcome to Soul's Sanctuary.